When you walk out your front door in the morning, you probably have a set routine.
Right, like most of us do. We're creatures of habit.
Exactly. You wave to the neighbor watering their lawn, or, you nod at the person waiting at the bus stop.
You might make small talk with the guy pouring your coffee.
Yeah, and you rely on this unspoken social contract, right? That the people around you are basically just like you.
That they're just living their lives, following the rules, and are, basically decent people.
Right. But what happens when that social contract is just a mask? Because in Quebec recently, police just completely ripped that mask off of 23 totally ordinary men.
And what they found underneath was, frankly, horrifying.
Yeah, they uncovered an unbelievable 4 million illegal files. So today we are doing a deep dive into a really stark, sobering report from Le Journal de Québec detailing this massive province-wide police sweep.
It's a genuinely unsettling report. I mean, we're dealing with the exploitation of children here.
It is heavy, but we're going to look beyond just those sensational headlines. We want to understand the psychology of the modern cyber predator and the exact forensic mechanisms that law enforcement are using to trap them.
Because looking away doesn't make these realities disappear, right? It actually just empowers the people operating in the shadows.
Totally.
Yeah.
And we also need to talk about what this hidden digital reality means for the physical safety of your own community.
The scale of this operation by the Sûreté du Québec, the SQ, it's immense. But the true value of what we're looking at today is how it exposes the intersection of everyday psychology and, well, cutting-edge digital forensics.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the very first thing that jumps out of this report completely breaks the stereotype.
Oh, absolutely. It shatters it.
Like, if I asked you to picture a cyber predator, your brain probably defaults to this cinematic cliche, right?
The, the isolated, creepy guy lurking in a dark basement somewhere.
Yeah. Exactly. Completely detached from society. But Catherine Guimond, who is the SQ lieutenant in charge of this investigation, she used a very specific phrase to describe these 23 arrested men.
Right. She called them Monsieur Tout le Monde.
Mr. Everybody.
Yeah, and that phrase is really the linchpin of this entire report, because when you look at the demographic data the police provided, it just dismantles all our preconceived notions of who is committing these crimes.
It's a huge range of people, isn't it?
It is. We are looking at an enormous age span, from 26 years old all the way up to 74 years old.
Wow.
And they aren't social recluses. The report notes they have everyday jobs. I mean, we're talking about IT professionals, retirees, and even a local janitor.
And they're scattered everywhere across the province, right?
Okay.
Like the report mentions arrests in Montreal, Rouyn-Noranda, Thetford Mines.
Yeah, they're spread out. These aren't guys meeting up in a physical clubhouse somewhere. They don't know each other in the real world at all.
Right, so they're just a completely decentralized network.
United only by a shared, highly illegal interest online. And that really brings up the psychology of compartmentalization, which is...
Wait, compartmentalization, what do you mean by that?
Well, what's fascinating here is how the human brain can fracture its reality. You have a 74-year-old retiree who, plays golf, waves to his neighbors, functions totally normally in society.
Yeah.
But simultaneously, he's hoarding horrific material on a hard drive in his study. The digital interface creates this sort of psychological buffer.
Oh, I see. Because they aren't physically present at the actual scene of the abuse.
Exactly. Their brains manage to detach the digital file on the screen from the real-world child victim it represents.
Man, that is deeply disturbing. It means the real danger is actually in the banality of it all.
Yes. The camouflage is the mundane life.
Like the guy reaching past you in the grocery store to grab a jar of pasta sauce. Or the guy quietly scrolling on his phone next to you on the bus. If their camouflage is just a perfectly boring, ordinary life, how does our internal alarm system even trigger?
That's the scariest part. It usually doesn't. We are biologically wired to look for obvious threats.
Right, like if someone looks erratic or dangerous, we just cross the street.
Exactly. Our brains look for anomalies. But when the threat looks like a friendly IT guy or a grandfatherly retiree, the alarm stays silent.
Because they fit into that social contract we talked about.
Yes, that camouflage is their primary survival mechanism. But the police and the journalists handling this report, they did something very deliberate to counter that camouflage.
They didn't just publish vague statistics, right? They didn't just say 23 men were arrested.
They published the exact names, ages, and hometowns of these individuals.
Yeah, the article explicitly names 71-year-old Paul Marion from Saint-Félix-de-Valois, and it names 26-year-old Ariel Carrillo-Valise from Montreal.
And by naming them, law enforcement strips away that illusion of the faceless internet stranger. It's a very intentional tactic.
It totally demystifies them.
Right. They force society to confront the uncomfortable truth that these alleged predators have actual physical addresses, they have daily routines, and they might live right next door.
But wait, this brings up a huge logistical question for me.
Okay, what is it?
If these guys are blending into society flawlessly, and they aren't committing physical crimes out in their neighborhoods where, a passing cop might spot them, how on earth did the police actually find them? They're literally hiding in plain sight.
And that leads directly into the mechanics of the Sûreté de Québec's digital sting.
Oh, okay.
Because traditional community policing, like waiting for a noise complaint or spotting a broken window, it's completely useless here.
Right, you can't patrol a sidewalk to catch a cyber predator.
Exactly. The police have to meet the criminals entirely within the digital landscape.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because the sheer volume of what the IFQ found in this digital landscape is just staggering.
It's hard to even wrap your head around the numbers.
Yeah, the report notes this operation had been building since the autumn, resulting in the seizure of 4 million files of child abuse and exploitation. 4 million.
And beyond the files, they also successfully identify and located 4 victims of voyeurism.
Including 2 minors, right?
Yes, which is incredible work, but it takes immense effort.
But I have to play devil's advocate for a second here.
Go for it.
If I'm sitting on a dark web forum using some fake anonymous username behind a VPN that bounces my internet connection all over the world, I'd feel pretty invincible. How do the police pierce through all that encryption and anonymity?
Well, it is a massive game of cat and mouse. The police aren't just sitting back waiting for a tip line to ring. They are actively infiltrating these restricted, encrypted networks.
So they go onto the dark web themselves.
Yes, and to do that, undercover officers have to adopt deep, complex digital personas.
Wow.
They spend months, sometimes longer, just building credibility within these forums to get access to the inner circles where the heavy file sharing actually happens.
So they just log on and pretend to be one of them. That sounds, I don't know, terrifying.
It's much more complex than just pretending. They have to understand the specific jargon, the behavioral norms of that specific dark corner of the internet.
Because if they slip up, they're made.
Exactly. And they have to gather technical evidence without tipping their hand at all. But to answer your question about feeling invincible behind a VPN, that's exactly the psychological trap these individuals fall into.
The illusion of a protective barrier.
Right. What they fail to realize is the paradox of their own technology. The very tools they use to hide are actually creating an unalterable ledger of their actions.
Meaning what, exactly? If the forum is encrypted, isn't all the data scrambled?
The communication might be scrambled while it's in transit, but the files themselves carry invisible baggage. It's called metadata.
Okay, break that down for me. What does metadata actually look like in this context?
Think of metadata as the digital footprint of a file. When someone takes a photo or a video, the file doesn't just contain the visual image you see on the screen. Hidden deep in the code is a massive amount of technical information. It logs the exact make and model of the device used, the software version, the timestamp.
Oh, wow.
And frequently, it even logs the exact GPS coordinates of where the device was when the file was created or modified.
Wait, really? So even if you upload something totally anonymously through a secure browser, the file itself might be screaming your exact latitude and longitude to the police.
Exactly. It's a digital breadcrumb trail. And it goes beyond just metadata, too.
What else is there?
Well, operational security, or OPSS, is incredibly difficult for a human being to maintain perfectly 100% of the time.
Because we're human, we make mistakes.
Right. A suspect might use a sophisticated VPN to hide their IP address 99 times in a row.
Yeah.
But on the 100th time, they get lazy. Or maybe their VPN drops for 3 seconds while they're connected to a server, and boom, their real home IP address leaks.
And the police are just waiting for that.
The Psyche's digital forensics teams are monitoring constantly for that exact microsecond slip-up.
That is wild. But I still don't completely get how they make it hold up in court, though.
What do you mean?
Well, couldn't the 54-year-old janitor in Laval just say, hey, I leave my Wi-Fi unsecured. Someone must have parked outside my house and downloaded those files. It wasn't me.
Ah, yes. That is the classic Trojan horse defense. And digital forensics has evolved specifically to crush it.
Really?
The police don't just log an IP address and call it a day. They track MC addresses, which are unique hardware identifiers for specific laptops or phones inside the house.
Oh, so they know exactly which device did the download.
Yes, and they look at correlation. If illegal files are being downloaded at 3:00 a.m., and simultaneously, the suspect's personal Facebook account is being actively scrolled on the very same machine.
Oh, that totally eliminates the random hacker in a van defense.
Exactly. They correlate the illegal activity directly with the suspect's mundane digital life.
So they build a puzzle so tight that by the time they actually knock on the front door, the case is fully baked.
The article really emphasizes this point. A criminal hiding behind a screen is not actually anonymous. The techniques are so highly refined that the digital evidence gathered is practically airtight against defense in court.
They just have time-stamped, meticulously logged histories of every single click.
Right. It's undeniable.
Man, that is incredible technical work. But, it forces us to look at the human cost of gathering all that evidence.
Because algorithms and code don't build those cases on their own.
Exactly. Seizing 4 million files means that real human beings, these undercover rescue officers, have to physically sit at a desk, look at those screens, and categorize 4 million pieces of horrific, traumatizing material.
The psychological toll of that reality is just profound. It is arguably the most grueling job in modern law enforcement.
Yeah, the report quotes Lieutenant Guimond calling these investigators everyday heroes.
And honestly, that feels like an understatement.
The understatement of the century. How do you even maintain your sanity? You're basically absorbing secondary trauma for 8 hours a day, and then you have to drive home and eat dinner with your own family.
It requires an immense amount of compartmentalization on the part of the officers, too.
It feels like, imagine you're an investigator, and your job is to walk into a highly radioactive zone every single morning.
Right, with the radiation being the material they have to review.
Exactly. You can't just stroll in wearing a T-shirt. You'd be destroyed instantly. You have to put on this heavy, suffocating psychological hazmat suit just to survive this shift.
That's a really good analogy.
But a hazmat suit only protects you while you are in the hot zone. If you walk back into your house and take it off in your living room, you contaminate your entire family.
And that is a very accurate mechanism for how secondary trauma operates. You bring the toxicity home with you if you're not careful.
Right. So how do they handle that?
The source specifically notes that the PECU recognizes this severe danger. These officers are not allowed to just muscle through it on their own.
So they have protocols in place.
Yes, they have mandatory decontamination processes.
What does that decontamination actually look like?
The article details that they rely heavily on specialized support services. They have strict life balance requirements, mandatory psychological support, and intense debriefing protocols.
So they have to actively process the darkness they ingest.
Exactly, so it doesn't bleed into their personal reality. They need an airtight tether to the normal, healthy world to remind them of what they are actually out there protecting.
Wow. So what does this all mean for the rest of us? Because we aren't wearing those hazmat suits. We're just the people living in the neighborhoods these officers are trying to protect.
And that's where Lieutenant Guimond makes a very pointed appeal in the report to the public, to you listening right now.
She stresses that combating child exploitation cannot just be the responsibility of some elite cyber squad, right?
Right. Law enforcement simply cannot be everywhere, especially in the quiet, mundane moments of everyday life where these individuals hide.
She specifically asks the public to be alert, to ask questions, and to report red flags to the authorities. And the part that really struck me is she says to do it without judgment.
And she adds, trusting the police to investigate properly.
This raises a really important question about human nature, I think.
How so?
Well, when we talked earlier about the camouflage of Mr. Everybody, the friendly retiree, the quiet coworker, we have to recognize that sometimes that camouflage actually slips.
Yes. A predator might make a strange comment, or show an unnatural interest in a neighbor's child.
Or exhibit a really subtle, unexplained inconsistency in their routine.
A red flag.
Exactly, a red flag. But our social conditioning pushes us to rationalize those flags, doesn't it?
We constantly rationalize them. We don't want to cause a scene. We think, oh, he's just a bit eccentric, or I don't want to ruin someone's life over a misunderstanding.
Because the social contract tells us to mind our own business.
Precisely. We naturally try to judge the situation ourselves, and more often than not, we default to doing nothing.
But Guimond is explicitly telling society, stop trying to be the judge.
Yes. If your intuition tells you something is fundamentally off, report it to the authorities. Let the police do the judging.
because they have the training to verify these suspicions discreetly and professionally.
And if you think about how complex the digital forensics are that we discussed earlier.
Oh, right, maybe the police already have an IP address that leaked from a VPN for 3 seconds.
Exactly. But they can't quite tie it to a physical address yet. They're missing one piece of the puzzle.
And then a neighbor calls in a weird interaction.
Yes. Your single real-world observation could be the tiny thread that connects a massive anonymous digital footprint to a physical suspect.
That is so powerful. The digital world inevitably bleeds into physical reality, and that is where the public has power.
That requires a massive shift in how we view our community responsibility, though.
Yeah, we can't just retreat into our digital bubbles and assume the cyber police are handling it all behind closed doors.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it means the ultimate tool against digital exploitation isn't just an algorithm or a metadata tracker.
No.
It is a vigilant society. A society that refuses to look the other way just because the potential threat doesn't look like a cartoon villain.
It really brings us full circle. We started this deep dive staring at the staggering numbers from the SQ's operation. 23 arrests, 4 million files.
It's really unprecedented numbers.
And we unpacked the chilling reality that the individuals hoarding this material are relying on the absolute banality of their lives, their normal jobs, their ages, their boring routines to camouflage their crimes.
And we explored how the police navigate the paradox of encryption, how they use the suspects' own digital footprints to build completely airtight cases before they even knock on the door.
Right. And we looked at the immense psychological toll this takes on the investigators who have to process all that darkness day in and day out.
And through all of that, the core takeaway is really that the internet is not a separate universe.
It's just a reflection of our world.
Exactly. The criminals operating in these dark forums, they live in our towns, they shop in our stores. The responsibility to stop them is a shared burden.
The tools to expose these hidden networks are vigilance, community awareness, and the courage to speak up when your intuition tells you that a social contract is being used as a mask.
Which leaves us with a necessary, if deeply uncomfortable realization to walk away with.
What's that?
We have spent decades teaching children about the dangers of the unknown, right? The stranger in the dark alleyway, the unmarked car slowly driving down the street.
Right, the classic stranger danger.
But if the greatest threat to a child's safety today isn't a shadowy stranger, but rather a seemingly normal neighbor sitting quietly behind a keyboard in his living room,
Yeah.
how do we need to fundamentally redefine what stranger danger means for the next generation?
Man, that is something to really think about the next time you walk out your front door. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.